Welcome to Teacher Tom Hanoi. This is a mock IELTS listening exam. Both the exam paper and the answer sheet are available to download in the video description below. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. I repeat, all the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Good luck. Now turn to Part 1. Part 1.
You will hear a phone conversation between Alex, an employee at a company called JPNW, and Martha, who wants to work as a trainee at the company. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
Hi, Alex. It's Martha Clines here. James White gave me your number. I hope you don't mind me calling you.
Of course not. How are you, Martha?
Good, thanks. I'm ringing because I need a bit of advice.
Oh, yeah, what about?
The training you did at JPNW a few years ago, I'm applying for the same thing.
Oh, right, yes, I did mine in 2014. Best thing I ever did. I'm still working there.
Really? What are you doing?
Well, now I work in the customer services department, but I did my initial training in finance. I stayed there for the first 2 years and then moved to where I am now.
That's the same department I'm applying for. Did you enjoy it?
I was pretty nervous to begin with. I didn't do well in my exams at school, and I was really worried because I failed maths. But it didn't actually matter because I did lots of courses on the job.
Did you get a diploma at the end of your trainee period? I'm hoping to do the one in business skills.
Yes, that sounds good. I took the one on IT skills, but I wish I'd done that one instead.
OK, that's good to know. What about the other trainees? How did you get on with them?
There were about 20 of us who started at the same time, and we were all around the same age. I was 18, and there was only one person younger than me who was 17. The rest were between 18 and 20. I made some good friends.
I've heard lots of good things about the training at JPNW. It seems like there are a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, definitely. Because of its size, you can work in loads of different areas within the organisation.
What about pay? I know you get a lower minimum wage than regular employees.
That's right, which isn't great, but you get the same number of days holiday as everyone else, and the pay goes up massively if they offer you a job at the end of the training period.
Yeah, but I'm not doing it for the money. It's the experience I think will be really useful. Everyone says by the end of the year you gain so much confidence.
You're right, that's the most useful part about it. There's a lot of variety too. You're given lots of different things to do. I enjoyed it all. I didn't even mind the studying.
Do you have to spend any time in college?
Yes, 1 day each month. So you get lots of support from both your tutor and your manager.
That's good. And the company is easy to get to, isn't it?
Yes, it's very close to the train station, so the location's a real advantage.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 8 to 10.
Have you got a date for your interview yet?
Yes, it's on the 23rd of this month.
So long as you're well prepared, there's nothing to worry about. Everyone's very friendly.
I am not sure what I should wear. What do you think?
Nothing too casual, like jeans, for example. If you've got a nice jacket, wear that with a skirt or trousers.
OK, thanks. Any other tips?
Well, I know it's really obvious, but arrive in plenty of time. They hate people who are late. So make sure you know exactly where you have to get to. And one other useful piece of advice my manager told me before I had the interview for this job is to smile, even if you feel terrified. It makes people respond better to you.
I'll have to practice doing that in the mirror.
Yeah, well, good luck. Let me know if you need any more information.
Thanks very much.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 30 seconds to review your answers to Part 1. Now turn to Part 2. Part 2.
You will hear a Director of Student Administration from Mitchford University giving a talk on the open day. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 17. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17.
Hello to you all. Thank you for coming to Mitchford University's Open Day. My name is Jackie Alford and I'm the Director of Student Administration. I must begin by passing on some late-breaking news. For the second year running, Mitchford University has been the winner of the prestigious Distance Education Award. As an online university, we are thrilled with this and thank our excellent staff for their dedicated work. We now add this trophy to our Research Excellence Award. The only one remaining is the Best Overall University, which we are expecting to be announced in the near future. Now, I want to cover a few aspects of what we offer our students from the student administration point of view. I would like to cover a few of the core things we deal with here at the university. Our office is always busy. Firstly, we handle all requests for on and off campus housing. First-year bachelor's degree students, we offer any and all assistance. If you're considering a postgraduate degree with us, which some of you coming to the area with families are, I've met some of you already, I think. Please be aware that due to staff constraints, we are only able to help international students. My department is also responsible for the collection of all student fees and, aside from exam week, we often assist with timetabling. Our department is in close contact with enrollment, so we know all your examination results. Student fees are used to help with the extracurricular activities here on campus. Each semester we put on a movie night, and last year we tried a music appreciation night, which was well received. We often invite a number of local charities in the area to participate in our movie nights. This has been a good way for us to give back to some of the local people. Now, when you apply for a place at Mitchford University, your application package goes first to the registrar's office, where it is either accepted or rejected based upon your past academic record and test results. If you are accepted, it comes to the Student Administration Department, where we examine any special requests you may have included in your application. After that, a letter is sent to you informing you of your acceptance. The whole process takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Generally, if we receive applications by April or early May, students are notified of their acceptance in late June unless you make mistakes with your application, which is all too common.
Before you hear the next part of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 18 to 20.
Yes, there are things we ask you not to do. Some people forget important information, believe it or not, and we get this most often. Some applicants forget to include a forwarding address. We can't send anything back to them. Another big one is forgetting to include past academic records. Hey, please don't forget them. We've had minor problems with people forgetting to include the processing fee, which stands at $45. Still others leave off the compulsory picture of themselves. Oh, yes, and perhaps the most common mistake people make is sending the application to the incorrect address. Please send the application to our post office box address. Okay, that's enough for me. Any questions?
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to review your answers to Part 2. Now turn to Part 3. Part 3.
You will hear 2 tourism students, Natalie and Dave, talking about the tourism case study that they are doing. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Dave, I'm worried about our case study. I've done a bit of reading, but I'm not sure what's involved in actually writing a case study. I missed the lecture where Dr. Baker talked us through it.
OK, well, it's quite straightforward. We've got our focus. That's tourism at the Horton Castle site. And you said you'd done some reading about it?
Yes, I found some articles and made notes of the main points.
Did you remember to keep a record of where you got the information from?
Sure, I know what a pain it is when you forget that.
OK, so we can compare what we've read. Then we have to decide on a particular problem or need at our site. And then think about who we're going to interview to get more information.
OK, so who'd that be? The people who work there? And presumably some of the tourists too?
Yes, both those groups. So we'll have to go to the site to do that, I suppose. But we might also do some of our interviewing away from the site. We could even contact some people here in the city, like administrators involved in overseeing tourism.
OK, so we'll need to think about our interview questions and fix times and places for the meetings. It's all going to take a lot of time.
And if we can, we should ask our interviewees if they can bring along some numerical data that we can add to support our findings.
And photographs?
I think we have plenty of those already. But Dr. Baker also said we have to establish with our interviewees whether we can identify them in our case study or whether they want to be anonymous.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. OK, once we've got all this information, I suppose we have to analyse it.
Yes, put it all together and choose what's relevant to the problem we're focusing on and analyse that carefully to find out if we can identify any trends or regularities there. That's the main thing at this stage, rather than concentrating on details or lots of facts.
OK, and then once we've analysed that, what next?
Well, then we need to think about what we do with the data we've selected to make it as clear as possible to our readers. Things like graphs or tables or charts.
Right.
Then the case study itself is mostly quite standard. We begin by presenting the problem and giving some background, then go through the main sections. But the thing that surprised me is that in a normal report, we'd end with some suggestions to deal with the problem or need we identified. But in a case study, we end up with a question or a series of questions to our readers, and they decide what ought to be done.
Oh, I hadn't realised that.
Before you hear the next part of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 27 to 30.
So, basically, the problem we're addressing in our case study of the Horton Castle site is why so few tourists are visiting it. And we'll find out more from our interviews, but I did find one report on the internet that suggested that one reason might be because, as far as transport goes, access is difficult.
I read that too, but that report was actually written 10 years ago when the road there was really bad, but that's been improved now. And I think there's plenty of fascinating stuff there for a really good day out, but you'd never realise it from the castle website. Maybe that's the problem.
Yes, it's really dry and boring.
I read somewhere a suggestion that what the castle needs is a visitor centre. So we could have a look for some information about that on the internet. What would we need to know?
Well, who'd use it for a start? It'd be good to know what categories the visitors fell into too, like school parties or retired people. But I think we'd have to talk to staff to get that information.
OK. And as we're thinking of suggesting a visitor centre, we'd also have to look at potential problems. I mean, obviously it wouldn't be cheap to set up.
No, but it could be a really good investment. And as it's on a historical site, it'd need to get special planning permission, I expect. That might be hard.
Right. Especially as the only possible place for it would be at the entrance, and that's right in front of the castle. But it could be a good thing for the town of Horton. At present, it's a bit of a ghost town. Once they've left school and got any skills or qualifications, the young people all get out as fast as they can to get jobs in the city, and the only people left are children and those who've retired.
Right. Something else we could investigate would be the potential damage that tourists might cause to the castle site. I mean, their environmental impact. At present, the tourists can just wander around wherever they want, but if numbers increase, there might have to be some restrictions, like sticking to marked ways. And there'd need to be guides and wardens around to make sure these are enforced.
Yes, we could look at that too. OK, well, we've certainly managed...
That is the end of Part 3. You now have 30 seconds to review your answers to Part 3. Now turn to Part 4. Part 4.
You will hear a talk by a university lecturer about the Aboriginal language of Australia. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 35. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 35.
We'll begin our course of study this semester by looking at the role of the English language among the native or indigenous peoples of Australia. Aboriginal English, as it is often referred to, was described by one linguist as the first and most significant dialect of Australian English. Over the years, there has been much research in the continent of Australia concerning the use and types of Aboriginal English. Some linguists have suggested that there were literally hundreds of languages spoken by the indigenous or Aboriginal people. European settlers who came to the continent of Australia brought with them their own language, and this was adopted by the Aboriginal people. As a result, many of the languages used by the Aboriginals died off. I should mention that in Central Australia, white settlement began comparatively late, with the setting up of the Overland Telegraph Station near Alice Springs in the 1860s. For the Aboriginal people of Central Australia, the coming of the white man to the area had a negative impact upon their culture and language. However, despite their domination, a number of Central Aboriginal language groups managed to survive quite well. Today, the two main language groups in the area are Warlpiri and Arrernte, also known as Arunta. These dialects are spoken only in remote areas of the continent. These areas include the Kimberleys, Arnhem Land, Far North Queensland and Central Australia. The two major language groups, Warlpiri and Arrernte, are both estimated to have well over 3,000 fluent speakers. Another Aboriginal dialect, known as the Western Desert Language, is spoken by a large group of some 5,000 speakers extending over a 25,000 square kilometre area of Central Australia.
Before you hear the next part of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 36 to 40. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 36 to 40.
So just how many languages were in use by these people? It's difficult to say conclusively, but some linguists have suggested as many as 260, while others quote a more conservative figure of around 200. Regardless of the actual number, there have been many forms of communication among the Aboriginal people, a people who comprise approximately 2% of the current 20 million strong Australian population. It's interesting to note that many Australians refer to Aboriginal languages as dialects, thinking that they are all dialects of one all-embracing Aboriginal language. This is actually incorrect. In fact, all of the original estimated 250 languages were mutually incomprehensible, as different from each other as, for example, German and French. Aboriginal society does, however, provide frequent examples of bilingualism, with some people speaking several languages and dialects. In actual fact, a number of the languages spoken by Indigenous Australians are themselves actually variations of English. A number of these languages have a great deal in common with English, but have their own distinctive words and meanings, as well as accents and grammar. The Aboriginal people view their language as a way to maintain their unique identity within Australian culture. Of those languages studied, about 20 are still being used today. However, as the older generations die off and are replaced by the younger, even these 20 are in danger of being lost. The others, they've all but been destroyed. They remain unused, but live in the memories of the elderly. In some cases, they are trying to be revived by Indigenous communities. In order to do so, the youth must learn to take a greater interest in their cultural heritage, or knowledge of these languages will go to the graves with those who knew them. If we don't act now to preserve these languages, an element of history will be lost forever.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 30 seconds to review your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the mock IELTS listening exam. You now have 10 minutes to review and transfer your answers from the exam paper to the answer sheet provided. Thank you for your attention. Let us know in the comments what score you got. Also, please like and subscribe for more mock IELTS exams. Thank you, and see you in the next video.